Thank you everyone for being here today. We will go ahead and get started. It is 12:14 p.m. and this is a Eagle Pass Metropolitan Planning Organization MPO Policy Board meeting. Today is Wednesday, November 13, 2024. We do have a quorum today with Judge Cantu, Commissioner Ramos, Ms. Sarah Hidalgo Cook, Mr. Epi Gonzalez, Councilman Diaz, and myself. Moving on to a moment of reverence, if we could take a quick moment in honor of those who serve our country, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Citizens' communication and recognition. I'm assuming that there is none. So we'll go ahead and move to item number 1, new business. Receive public testimony and approve resolution number MPO 2024-04 adopting the proposed interim program of projects, IPP. Mr. Madera.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So for this item, this is an amended interim program of projects. We have presented one before. What we were lacking on that are some rehabilitation or maintenance projects. And so those are now listed here and in your packet. So the top 3 there are rehabilitation maintenance projects for sections of US 57, US 277, and FM 1588. And those are all part of the future project of completing 480 and some tie-ins of those roads to that 480 project. So now this is the full list that we need. And again, these are already pre-approved projects that were on the Laredo District list. So they're not new projects per se. We're just adopting them as an MPO. And then that also includes transit projects, which we have covered already a few times. That has various maintenance and equipment projects for the list is was included for 2 fiscal years of maintenance projects. So any questions on that list of projects? This is an amended list. We've already covered it in a lot of detail.
No questions from me, but board, any questions from anyone?
No, Mayor. No question.
Do we need action to approve this?
Yes, and we will be doing this as in form of a resolution.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved, Mayor.
We do by Judge Cantu.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Diaz. Discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. Moving on to item 2. Discussion and possible action of a resolution adopting an executed contract between the City of Eagle Pass and Stanley Consultants for general MPO consulting on an as-needed basis.
Yes, thank you. So for this item, we're discussing a contract that the city followed the Texas procurement laws on to bring on Stanley Consultants. We have Tim Juarez here representing Stanley Consultants.
How you doing, sir?
A couple of the key details just for timeline purposes. In February 2024, a special meeting was held approving a resolution to authorize a request, RFQ, for these services. March 10th, 2024, the solicitation was opened. March 28th, the solicitation was closed. We did receive one submittal for that from Stanley Consultants. May 7th, City Council had a regular meeting, and it was approved at that point to accept the Stanley Consultants bid. The contract was executed with them between the city and Stanley Consultants August 21st. And so what the board has before them today is to approve and adopt that contract as it did go through all the formal procurement to where the MPO can then utilize that consultant for MPO work. Because that contract that went through was for the city to work with Stanley Consultants on MPO related. Now this would be the MPO directly working with Stanley. Tim, anything else you would like to add on that?
No, some MPOs do one step or a two-step process. Has the MPO policy been in place before the city executed the contract? And the contract would have come for informational purposes only, but because the city serves as the fiscal agent for the MPO by federal and state requirement, all contractual must go through the city's procurement procedures, which process will notice of the city policy.
Okay, and this contract is as needed, correct?
As needed, correct.
Do you, help other MPOs, Tim?
Yeah, so, I'm gonna be presenting next on the long-range plan, which was the first, but yes, we help other MPOs.
Okay.
We have a contract with the city of Laredo, to provide support for them.
Duly noted. Any questions from anyone on the board? There's no questions. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the resolution adopting an executed contract between the City of Eagle Pass and Stanley Consultants by Councilman Diaz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ramos. Discussion. All in favor? We'll take a vote. It is unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to item 3. Discuss Metropolitan Transportation Plan, MTP, development and review scope, schedule, and cost proposal from Stanley Consultants for assistance with development of the MTP and possible action authorizing MPO staff to assign MTP-related tasks to said consultants.
So we have a presentation from Tim on this one, but just some general background. The MTP is a long-range plan, 20 to 25 years. We'll probably be looking at 25 years for ours. And with this size of project, like cities often use consultants when they do a comprehensive plan. This is very similar to that. It's very typical for MPOs, especially of our size, with our size of staffing, to utilize consultants to assist in development of these. So Mr. Juarez is going to give some information, a presentation on his proposed schedule, details, and cost. So we'll go ahead and get his slides up.
Thank you, Placido and Policy Board members. We are appreciative and to be here to present this information. So this, as Placido noted, based on the previous discussion, this is as an as-needed basis. One of the as-needs coming from the MPO is development of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Is it enter, Placido, to forward it? Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background information of myself, I'm Tim Juarez with Stanley Consultants. Prior to working with Stanley, I'm a retiree from TxDOT, from the actual Transportation Planning and Programming Division. And I was there for 34 years before I retired in February of 2021. All my experience has been in planning, programming, and project development, helping MPOs, cities, and counties to work their way through the planning process, programming process to get their construction projects on the ground, and then implementation. A key factor that I noted at your inaugural meeting is that when federal legislation of ICE-T 91 came out, I was one of the original team members that implemented that program there at TxDOT for utilization by MPOs. And as federal legislation has occurred throughout the years, some modifications have been made to that program, but all the documents that Eagle Pass MPO will utilize, the format and setting was established back in 91, and very little change has happened to it. Okay, it says battery turning low. Okay. So part of our team, our consultants team, is head up by Stanley Consultants. We are the prime on this. We will be supported by Cambridge Systematics. They do multimodal services, so they will look at bicycle, pedestrian, freight, and transit, assisting us as the prime. We also have Whitman, Reckart, and Associates. They will be doing off-model analysis, and I'll talk about what that actually means. But they develop trial demand models through many of our MPOs throughout the state of Texas. We also have Bosnack and Camarillo. They will be doing the public involvement component. Public involvement and public participation is key to the entire MPO planning process, And many of you may know Fernando and Lena Camarillo. They're originally from the Eagle Pass region. And then we also have Ardura. Ardura will be helping us provide environmental justice analysis, land use, which is a key component here, as well as assisting Stanley with the development of the financial plan. And Ardura is a consultant to the city of Eagle Pass. They originally did have your thoroughfare plan, which is in draft form.
We'll get that back in momentarily, but I believe you have slides, printed version of it. You can follow along with those for now.
Here you go, you can use this.
So as provided as background information, we listed what our organizational chart looks like. It has it broken down, like we noted, as Flash noted, for an as-needed basis. There are 4 primary documents in which the MPO is responsible for and required to develop. So we set up our organizational chart and work activities based on that. To give you information about our team, we are subject matter experts in Texas planning and programming of the MPO documents. We have experience in the Texas planning and project development process, which is 2 distinct areas. The project development process takes it from conceptual feasibility corridor study all the way through PSD design, right-of-way, utility relocation, and construction on the ground. We have extensive TxDOT and NPO work experience. As Mayor Salinas noted, we have done work for the Laredo region. In addition to that, part of our efforts is that we're going to be responsive and committed to the actual needs, of your MPO on a call as needed basis. We will also use the latest technology to enhance the planning process as well as to streamline that actual planning process. And then we have the necessary resources and capabilities nationwide to bring in experts to provide in-house support to the MPO staff, to your technical advisory committee, and of course to you, the Transportation Policy Board. Now, I did want to cover what Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration requirements are. And you're going to hear constantly that this is a cyclical process. To get throughout the entire MPO process takes about 5 years. And so part of that effort is that we have to be able to examine travel and transportation issues and the needs within your region, within your metropolitan area boundary. This also includes doing an analysis of your demographics of the entire community. So we will get that broken down to a micro analysis efforts. So then within certain segments or regions of the city, certain segments within the county, you'll be able to see what the baseline is and what the forecasted or projected growth will be. Part of this effort is primarily we have to examine travel patterns and where trends are occurring. This effort is going to be noted on a baseline effort, but then we also have to forecast 20 plus years, and I'll get into that in more detail. Part of this effort is that in order to ensure that we meet the transportation needs of the region, we have to do an analysis of alternatives to meet those projected future demands. Is a 4-lane continuous left turn on a state highway the best approach to go? Is that transit route meeting the needs of the specific residents within that area? So that's kind of the analysis we will do. But most importantly, we want to ensure that your long-range plan addresses the safe and efficient movement of the transportation needs to meet mobility within the area. So what is the Eagle Pass MPO required to do? You're required to do what all other MPOs within Texas are required to do. You have to develop and maintain a metropolitan transportation plan. You have to update and approve a transportation improvement program, and you just modified or amended yours today. You also have to develop and adopt a unified planning work program, which will essentially serve as the MPO's budget. That's just a very simplified way to address it. And in addition, you have to prepare a public participation plan to make sure that you engage the community, you engage the region. All of those 4 documents fit into what we call the family of planning and programming documents. You're not developing your plans isolated. We're going to ensure that it meets TxDOT's statewide long-range plan, which the commission adopted earlier this year. We also want to make sure that your project fits within TxDOT's Unified Transportation Program. That's TxDOT's 10-year document of committed improvements within the facilities of the state system, but it also accounts for plan and develop authority. We want to make sure that this IPP you approved today is reflected in the statewide transportation improvement program that will go over to FHWA and FTA for approval, and that it makes its way through TxDOT's 2-year planning cycle or letting. So what will the MTP do for Eagle Pass? It includes both long-range and short-range strategies and actions. It's the development of an integrated multimodal transportation system. So we won't only be looking at roadway, but we will be looking at transit, pedestrian walkways, and bicycle transportation facilities as well. We want to ensure the facilitation of the safe movement of both people and goods. As a border community, you have multiple ports of entry, so we want to be able to address that freight movement as it's traversing throughout your region. We want to be able to address both current and future transportation demand to ensure that it covers that 20-plus planning horizon. We want to be able to confirm and validate not only what is currently occurring on the ground today from various modes, but we also want to ensure that the forecasted land use, as the city continues to grow and develop, as the county continues to grow and develop, that we meet those land use needs. Because if you're a commercial, residential, or business location, all of those facilities have different travel patterns from time of day, time of the week. So we want to be able to address those from a regional perspective. The federal and state requirements is that it has to be a continuous 20-year planning horizon. And then the other requirement, it has to be updated every 5 years. And I wanted to know if you have any questions or comments, please stop me during the presentation. So what will the Eagle Pass MTP contain? It's going to have an introduction, an executive summary. It's going to note mobility conditions as well as mobility analysis. We're going to include and have a description of the public involvement process. How did we get input from your community members? It's also going to identify the goals and actions of the region through the Technical Advisory Committee and through your Transportation Policy Board, as well as public participation. We also are required to address environmental justice and land use. We have to break down your community profile, your demographics, so that low-income communities are not underserved on the transportation component. So we will do that analysis metropolitan boundary-wide. We have to, as part of the NTP requirements, do project prioritization. Policy Board will need to determine what your project priorities are. And that's going to be based on a critical component, which is financial plans of that project list. So every MTP is required to be financially constrained. You can't have more projects in there than what you're projected to have financially. We will take this IPP that was developed today, we will, in development of the MTP, compare it to TxDOT's statewide long-range plan. to TxDOT's Border Transportation Master Plan, TxDOT's Texas Freight Mobility Plan, to ensure that any type of funding that could be available to the region, your projects are identified. We also want to note those projects that offer mobility, connectivity, congestion reduction, and safety. Because if you're familiar with the 13 pots of funds available at TxDOT, each of them have their own direct categories. So in identifying your projects, identifying project prioritization, your financial forecasting, we as your consultant will look at all the various pots of funds that TxDOT has readily available to it that you can therefore identify and use on your end. Some of the other concurrent documents that are not part of the MTP but are truly integrated and must be developed prior or during MTP development is your public involvement plan. Even though we have a chapter to address public participation, the MPO currently does not have a public involvement plan. That is something that we can clearly do as an add-on to the MTP scope, but it would need to be at the direction of MPO staff and policy board. We also need to develop a transportation network. One doesn't exist for the region. We do have in draft form the city's thoroughfare plan, and we can utilize that once it's adopted, and if that's the direction and guidance from MPO staff, but it only covers the city limits and ETJ. It does not go all the way out to your metropolitan area boundary. So we will need to look at that system up to your MAB, but then we will also need to look at the thoroughfare plan to see what assumptions, what baseline, and what forecast was used, because we want to verify that we are off to the right track for the Eagle Pass MPO. The MPO will also need to develop a project selection and evaluation criteria. This is from a qualitative aspect, data-driven, based on traffic counts, based on level of service, could be based on accidents that are occurring throughout that network, but it will be from a qualitative aspect. We will need to reaffirm the tip that you did today, because the tip is a subset of the MTP. So every project in your tip must be identified in the MTP. And so it's just a good way to note that the tip is a subset of that long-range plan. Because, many MPOs statewide use a travel demand model to do, it's a computerized model that does analysis of your network. Because you don't have one in the region, and we are, at the direction of staff, working with TxDOT Austin to see about when you can get into the cycle of a model being developed, but you won't have one completed by the time the MTP is needed. So we're gonna have to do some off-model analysis that we have utilized statewide in other areas. And then another key component is the development of an MPO website, where if the public were to come and look and see what are the projects being looked at, what are the transits route, they have one location to go to find all this information. And so we want to be able to focus in community engagement, going out to community, getting their input, looking not only at those of the transit users, but we also want to talk to real estate folks. We want to talk to developers. Do we have the most current information that is needed to help address the growth of not only the city, but the county as a whole as well?
I have a question.
So, was there a question?
Yes.
I have a question. And I'm not sure if it would be with you or with Placido. But as we continue to go through projects and we have to update the tip in order to update the STIP on whether quarterly or whatever it is that we have to do with TxDOT, who's going to be updating the MTP? Or is that something you're going to be updating as we go? Or is that something that the MPO staff is going to be doing as we go? Whose responsibility does that lie on?
Okay, so just some background information so everybody's working off of the same page. The STIP is a 4-year program. and it's updated every 2 years. That's to ensure that local governments have the opportunity to move projects in as projects are being developed and constructed. Because once that happens, they fall off the tip and they go into the construction letting aspect. So if there's, our goal is to capture all the projects, even from a conception aspect, to ensure that it's in the MTP. So part of our conversation earlier, you noted that y'all have some studies going on, you were looking at a transit hub. We definitely want to work with you to ensure that we have that in the right location on the transportation network throughout the region. But if a project is not in there and say, hey, we got some additional grant money from FTA to do this project, then that will come through your process the way we understand it. Staff would note it to the Technical Advisory Committee. Technical Advisory Committee would make a recommendation for Policy Board for approval. You would amend the MTP, and when you amend the MTP, you can do it concurrently to amend the TIP. And we can work with staff as we capture these projects that are improvements throughout this system that weren't noted previously. And hopefully that addresses your question.
Pretty much. I know that we have, on a quarterly basis with the STIP, the state updates the STIP quarterly.
Yeah, so there is that quarterly mechanism through the Transportation Planning and Programming Division.
Right.
They'll do a call, they'll issue out the schedule for when those quarterly revisions are done, and we can definitely get that information and put it within MTP development.
Okay.
Our goal, and we'll talk about schedule in a little bit, we're gonna have some overlaps of a lot of these programs so that you guys are aware of them here within the region. So as I noted, it's a federal and state requirement that your MTP be continuous 20 years. So because it's state and the federal regs that you have to have a 20-year planning horizon. So TxDOT has taken the approach working with all the MPOs that you should forecast at least for 25 years. In our evaluation of where the other MPOs are in the MTP, and where the Eagle Pass MPO MTP needs to be submitted because there is a hard deadline, we are proposing that your base year of your long-range plan be 2025. So we will build up your transportation network to fiscal year 2025. We will also recommend a forecast year of 2050. That puts you in alignment with all the other Texas MPOs. As I noted, your MTP must be adopted no later than December of 2026. That date came from the state, agreed upon with FHWA and FTA. So what that means is that instead of having a 25-year planning horizon, yours will be 24. But it gets you in the same cycle, and there's a benefit both on the MPO side, but on the TxDOT state side as well. Part of the effort, based on rules and regulations at the federal and state level, is that you must have a 45-day comment period. No deviation from that. You will have to review and respond to those comments locally, and we gave MPO staff in the schedule 15 or 30 days, and there's enough fluctuation in there based on schedule and how things work out. There's also timing for your Technical Advisory Committee to review and provide those comments and have staff address them. And then there's also part of that concurrent review process of the Transportation Policy Board to review, comment, and then send that over to approval aspect. Now, you have at your place, I believe, 11 by 17 copy of this schedule. What you see on the left-hand side is essentially the components of the MTP, what will be required. We don't have enough analysis in there to tell you how we're going to do it, but we wanted to give you an idea of what the steps are. If you look at the heavy lines going horizontally, you can identify those as major milestones. So we're going to have to complete certain aspects of the MTP by those major milestones. At the far right, outlined in red, that is the deadline of when the MTP needs to be submitted to the state and federal partners. Now, I will tell you that the development of an MTP normally takes 2 to 3 years. And that's because many of the MPOs already are established and have gone through 3 iterations of MTP developments since they were required under federal and state rules and regs. We are actively putting all our necessary resources to ensure that the Eagle Pass MPO and you as your Transportation Policy Board are able to approve and submit your MTP no later than December 15 of 2026. Now, by my calculation, it gives me about a year and 5 months, more or less, depending on how some of these activities occur, based on what Eagle Pass staff will do versus what we will do as your general planning consultant firm. We can take our necessary resources and mobilize them to complete these concurrent activities while we're also developing your MTP. The key thing is, and the Laredo District will testify, is that you don't want to miss that December 2026 date, because if you do, then you go into what is called a nonconformance, and your TIP projects, your construction projects, for about 30 to 90 days, depending on the severity of the lapse, will be placed on hold, and TxDOT can't utilize federal or state funds. So that's why I highlighted it in red, because that is a critical dead drop date. What you received in addition to that is each of you policy board members in your packet should have gotten a proposed draft budget. This budget is based on what we know of known data or information here within the Eagle Pass region. We took some assumptions, to be perfectly honest, as to what we would do and what staff would do, but we also took the budget amount identified in your Unified Planning Work Program for Task 4, which indicated that you had an allotment of $150,000 for each fiscal year. So we broke it out in fiscal year 2025, fiscal year 2026. What we did not account for were those last 4 months in calendar year 2026, because the federal fiscal year starts in October 1. So we're having to balance that out too. So what you see is just for fiscal year 2025 and 2026. I will tell you that there are going to be some challenges that we will face and that you will face as a region, but we are up to the task to meet your needs, putting all hands on deck to meet what is needed here by MPO staff, Technical Advisory Committee, and you, most importantly, the Transportation Policy Board. So that's the extent of my presentation. I'm going to pause there and answer any comments or questions you may have.
So I guess one question that I just have in regards to the challenges that you're stating that the MPO will have, what challenges are you foreseeing that those challenges are?
So a lot of it, Judge, is being able to get access to demographic data. Placido and I and his staff members have talked about, the city is responsible for permitting. They'll have electrical hookups, utility hookups, et cetera. That would help determine where the growth is occurring. Essentially, what we will do is, and I'm going to use the carpet, we will have your metropolitan area boundary outline. And based on the roadway network, each of these grids could potentially be what we call a traffic analysis zone. And in that traffic analysis zone, we would know if it's commercial, if it's residential, or if it's a special generator. Each of those 3 types generates truck or a trip that are different from an origin perspective and a make sure that we're able to replicate the base year of what's occurring from that trip component. And we will work with your real estate board, your developers to ensure what is actually occurring by each of the grids. So that's really going to be the challenge, because we want to make sure that the demographic data from a base year is done as accurately as possible based on known information at the moment, so that when we build a forecast, helping Laredo District identify what's needed for the transportation system, we have an ability to justify the need of why that two-lane facility must be a four-lane facility. So Judge, that's really going to be the challenge I see.
Very well. Thank you.
And one hasn't been done for the region, so we're
Yeah.
gonna have to build up for the base.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Madera, as it stands right now, can we afford the services of Mr. Juarez and Stanley?
Yeah, money's a good question. Thank
I
you for
mean-
that one. So we fortunately do have, and in working with them, I think he knows what he's doing. He's looking at our budget and
Right.
and planning accordingly and proposing accordingly. So it does fit within our FY '25 and '26. Well, we had FY '24 carryover and FY '25 budget, and it does fit within that. And then we would foresee it to continue to fit within that for FY '26 and moving forward. So, but
Okay.
yes, the short answer is yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Juarez. Unless somebody else has any further questions? Commissioner?
I have a question. I understood we have to submit by December for the projects, the MTP.
Yes,
Uh,
December.
Bear with me, this
No,
MTP.
No.
TIP.
No,
I'm-
There's a lot of
A
acronyms.
little
We are
bit.
out at, I'm an ex-TxDOT guy, so we're in
Yes.
Alphabet City. I
All of this-
apologize. And I'm sure the mayor and the judge knows constantly, we always use acronyms, but it is the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. It
Yes.
will need to be submitted no later than December 31st of calendar year 2026.
Okay,
Now, we said December 15th because we're accounting for vacation at the local, state, and federal level. So we want to make sure we get it in there and somebody says, yep, we received it. So, yes,
okay.
Commissioner.
My question is, who's gonna identify the projects, or are we gonna have a committee, or, that's my question. Who's identifying the projects that we're submitting?
So, other areas, just before I turn it, all other MPOs, the local government representative, be a city council member or a county commissioner, proposes projects.
Okay,
And working with staff and the technical advisory committee, they will review the validity of those projects. Now, TxDOT will tell you the higher ranking of the project will be those projects that have gone through the project development process. They have a feasibility of corridor study. They have PS&E or design. They have some right-of-way or utility or those type of components, because each of them gives added merit to that project going up to the top. And so it will start all at the local level. We will just do the analysis for the validity of that project.
Yeah, I think I just want to add, he covered that pretty well, but we would take project suggestions. We would use similar to like a CIP, capital improvement plan project, where we have the project's selection scoring criteria, and then utilizing staff, the TAC, and the board, we would then prioritize those projects. So it'll be a team effort in coming up with that.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and included in that team effort, Ms. Sara Garza's bringing up, we'll close coordination with TxDOT on that project list.
Thank you.
Good.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Well, we need the help right now.
Yes, we do.
Any other questions, concerns?
And I'm sure with Placido, but I have my contact information.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Juarez.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to proceed with a motion on this item?
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion.
I'll
I'm-
second.
I'm assuming to authorize the work of Mr. Juarez by Judge Cantu, and a second by Ms. Hidalgo Cook. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor except for Councilman Diaz abstains. I think he left, so thank you. Item 4, discussion with possible action to provide a letter in support of the City of Eagle Pass Camino Real International Bridge Expansion Project.
So the MPO received this request letter from LJ Engineering on behalf of the city of Eagle Pass. We do have Mr. Ronnie Rivera representing the city of Eagle Pass on this, to give a little bit more detail on this. In general, though, the MPO, we will be receiving these type of projects. Anything transportation related, especially involving federal or state funds, would either need to be on MPO project lists or will be coming to us for, basically for MPO blessing. So that's pretty much where we are with this, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Rivera for some more details.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Madera. Again, the city's long-term plan for the port of entry obviously is to make cross-border trade more efficient. Our contracted engineers, LJA, is currently in the process of submitting our presidential permit application, and that'll be submitted on November 22nd. Our project consists of adding 6 lanes to Camino Real International Bridge. As some of the stakeholders that we already have letters of support for this project, we have the Secretary of State, Ports de Plains, we have the Asociación de Agentes Aduanales, we have the Brokers Association, Ports de Plains, State of Coahuila, and Index Piedras Negras. So we have support on both sides, on the U.S. and on the Mexican side. We're asking if our MPO will provide us a letter of support, and we're using a standard template, and we have shared that with the board members. If we look at our trade, just alone in 2023, we had over 37 billion that crossed through here, placing us, fourth as far as the fastest growing port. Also, our commercial traffic, as you know, our Camino Real International Bridge, we just had our 25th anniversary. Since 2000, a year after in its inception, the commercial traffic has increased over 97%. Just more recently, in the last 2 months, we are experiencing over a 33% increase in commercial traffic, and that's going to continue. So all we're asking for is that we receive a letter of support for this project.
Any questions from the board? With that said, thank you, Mr. Rivera, and happy birthday. It's
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rivera's birthday, so
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
putting you on the spot a little bit. I'll entertain a motion from anyone on the board at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Ms. Sarah Hidalgo Cook. Is there a second? I'll step aside. I'll go ahead and second the motion to approve this letter. Discussion? I don't know if you heard this item, Councilman. It was in regards to a letter of support that is being requested by LJA for the bridge expansion project for the city of Eagle Pass. And Mr. Ronnie explained that they requested a letter of support. There is a motion to approve by Ms. Sarah Hidalgo Cook, and I had a second. Now we're open for discussion. If there is none, all in favor? 3 in favor?
Yep, 4.
I'm sorry, 4? I didn't see. Oh, Mr. Gonzalez, 4 in favor. Anyone opposed?
I'll abstain, sir.
Okay. Judge abstains, and Commissioner Ramos abstains as well.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Comments from the public, item number 5.
I'm not aware of any.
There are none,
Secretary,
right?
any? None?
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to the consent agenda. And basically, it's just the minutes of September 18 and October 9, 2024. We need a motion to approve the minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes by Judge Cantu. Second by Ms. Sarah Hidalgo Cook. All in favor? Unanimous. 7, Executive Director's Report.
So I'll cover a couple things quickly here. We have, we'll be discussing always in this section, items for the future board meetings. So at this point, if the board has any items they would like us to put on a future agenda, please let us know. Key projects that the MPO staff and technical advisory committee will be working on, public participation plan, which Mr. Tim Juarez also referred to in his presentation, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, MTP, website, MPO logo. We're also working on a traffic poll or survey. We found another MPO that had one out. Mr. Romero Valderas, city manager, also part of the technical committee, shared that with us. So we are essentially replicating that. We're going to have a draft of that to share with the board and see if there's any questions they would like changed. But this will allow us to start gaining the public input that we need for pretty much all of our projects and help us to identify problem areas. Hiring of administrative assistant. So we have opened that position. We have received about 20 or so applications, several pretty promising applicants, and we have scheduled to interview this Friday. So we're looking
Great.
forward to bringing on board, this would be an administrative assistant full-time to the MPO. So this will not be a city employee, but an MPO 100% staff person. Some future agenda items, we will be bringing before you in the next meeting invoices and specifically expenditures of the MPO, which we would then submit to the state for reimbursement. We would be able to already start looking at organizing all the October expenses and submitting October reimbursement. There's a couple of other things on here. We'll also be probably looking at information from the TAC and reporting that to you, and providing updates on progress on the public participation plan and MTP. That concludes. So any items that the board would like to see for future agendas?
I can't
Questions
think of
we'll cover?
any specific items besides the ones you spoke about. Board? No? Thank you, Placido. Appreciate it. With that said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We do by Judge Cantu and a second by Commissioner Ramos, and all in favor. It is unanimous motion. Meeting adjourned at 1:01 p.m.